Well, welcome everyone. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the official launch of Thami Wales Canada and the celebration of Black History Month. My name is Ursula Mwobu, and I will be your host for the evening. And in case you're wondering who I am, I'm a marketing manager at TD by day, and by night, I am a volunteer at a nonprofit called BBPA, Black Business and Professional Association, and amongst other things. So I'm also a writer, a strategy consultant, and a blogger. Shout out to all the multitaskers in the house. Well, welcome again to the launch of Thami Wales. It's a management consulting company that provides advisory services to businesses on strategic and nimble approaches to managing their people, processes, and technology, and also to individuals on strategies to achieve their personal and career goals. Now, who best to introduce Thami Wales than the founder himself, Taiwo Julius? Taiwo is the principal consultant at Thami Wales Canada. He is a change management and human resource thought leader and has over a dozen years of leadership experience. He's certified by various global organizations, including ProSci, HRCI, amongst others. His experience spans across North America and Africa within the media, oil and gas, and manufacturing, e-commerce and consulting services and industries. Over the course of his career, he supported and coached leaders and management staff of various organizations. Taiwo is also the current president of the Children's Center for Development, CCD, which is a nonprofit based in Ontario and focused on coaching, mentoring, and sponsoring kids and young adults. He's also actively involved in developing training courses for CCBS, which is Covenant Capital Business School.
By utilizing their greatest asset, which is the people. And our mission is to be a cutting-edge leader in the management consulting industry, helping individuals and organizations achieve transformational change to significant. So I think I would just share that. So while I'm just speaking through it, I mean, you can just see. So this is Thami Wales, and this is our mission, our vision, and I'll just quickly talk about our services and stop sharing. So like Joe rightly said, we are into change management and ProSci certified, and we do both organizational and individual change management. Human resources consulting, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations are focusing on BIPOC recruitment now. That's Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So we want to have our niche. Many people on this call know me as an HR professional and a change management expert. So we are doing all this end-to-end of HR strategy, performance management, succession planning. We're helping with strategy development and execution. Is one thing to develop, is another thing to execute. And leadership and coaching, strategic business advisory, and career coaching and counseling. I do that every single day of my life. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to gather you guys and talk about Thami Wales. Welcome everyone, and back to Uju.
Thank you. The services are very much needed at this time, especially because we really deserve these opportunities, especially for people who are really talented, who are great talent. So just having a company like Thami Wales that just helps to bridge that gap is very timely. And so we applaud and the celebration and the creation of this program and this company. Moving on, we have an interesting lineup of speakers and guests, and I am incredibly excited to listen to what she has to share. And I'm just going to start off with our first speaker, June Payne. June is a director at one of Canada's largest banks and the founder of Black Home Base, an initiative that is designed to bring valued resources to the Black community to elevate and advance the Black people. June is also the founder of the Toastmasters Club, Speak Up Toastmaster, which helps individuals stand up, speak up, and stand out in their own unique and powerful voice. I cannot overestimate how much Toastmasters has been a blessing to me. So thank you, June. I just wanted to plug that there. But she's going to be speaking to us about her wealth of experience and also giving us a few tips. So please join us in welcoming June Payne.
Thank you very much. And good evening, good night, good morning for all those folks from across the globe who are joining us today. I'm told there is over 100 people here. So welcome everyone. I'm going to actually share my slides. So give me a moment while I bring that up and talk to you about Black Home Base. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm humbled really and honored to be here tonight for Taiwu to invite me to this very impactful lineup of speakers tonight. I think this is a tremendous Black History Month event. I think 2020 will be remembered as one of those very pivotal years that changed the trajectory of the Black culture, the Black experience around the globe, along with COVID. It was the brutal murder of George Floyd that made me realize that change needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. I examined within myself and realized there's an urgency that's needed, not just with me, but I think around the world, people realize there's this urgency for change. I started blackhomebase.com, the seed of this website, planted about 8 years ago, back in 2012, when I attended a financial professional organization called COFP, that's Canadian Association for Urban Financial Planners. I went to this event and I was blown away by the number of Black professionals that were there and this large contingent of Black men, Black women, not the picture that you see in the regular news. There were these very distinguished individuals. I was like, where have you been? How come I've never heard of this organization? Is it a secret? I have got to put the word out about this organization. I attended many of those meetings within that organization and many organizations like that are Black-centric, aiming to do good for the Black community. I realized that there's a richness of information, a richness of accomplishment, a richness of capabilities, but the awareness of these organizations is limited and splintered. I endeavored to create a website to bring together much of the information that's out there, that's needed within our community. But it wasn't until George Floyd's murder that I was propelled to move forward to make a change. We are in an information age. Information is gold. Information educates, and information really is freedom. Education is freedom. This website is a curation of information from a multitude of different sources across multiple areas of interest for me and hopefully for you. It's quite fitting that this Black History Month we come together and recognize these initiatives that are represented here, like Taiwu's. It is often said, someone has to die in order for life to begin. George Floyd's death has germinated a forest of new life. I read a quote recently by Terry Pratchett that no one is actually dead until the ripples they have caused die away. Unknowingly, George Floyd caused quite a ripple that created sound waves across the world, and he will live in our memories forever. That wave was the kick I needed to finish and publish blackhomebase.com, which started a full 8 years ago. And it's still a work in progress. This website is built really to help elevate the Black community. Now, in Black Home Base, BASE stands for building, advancing, succeeding, and elevating. So, building by providing the building blocks for a strong and cohesive community, advancing, working to ensure that resources are available for advancement. S for succeeding, we succeed when everyone gets to live their purpose. Elevating, E for elevating, elevating the Black community beyond perceived limits to new heights. This is my website at a glance. I've fallen in love with history, but we have history, education, Black association, wealth building, employment, health, and a whole host of other areas. History is my favorite. Education is paramount in our community. The Black associations, as I mentioned, there are a lot of them, but a lot of people don't know about these organizations. Organization like COFP that I mentioned before, BPTN, which is an organization for Black technical professionals, BLAC for Black lawyers, Jamaican Canadian Association, First Fridays, an organization that promotes Black business, CAFCAN, Caribbean, African, Canadian Social Services, and a whole host of other organizations. Wealth building, which is something that's so needed within our community. And I'm featuring this month this gentleman, Orlando Lopez. He's a Black individual, not Spanish. Employment is also very important before we can actually build our wealth. And of course, there's health, because within our community, there's specific health issues that are associated with the Black community. I will spend a few minutes and talk about these three key pillars. History. You need to know who you are, who you really are, to move forward with purpose. Martin Luther King said, "We are not makers of history, we are made by history." We as Black people have a rich history going well beyond slavery, to the beginning of humanity, really. We are products of that long lineage that paints a much different picture than the one fed through years of oppression. I fell in love with the history section of this site because I realized that I knew very little about my Black history, about African history, particularly ancient history. The history of the Great Wall of Zimbabwe, the history of almost that all of Africa except for Ethiopia was colonized, the history of the hidden history, thousands of artifacts in museums around the world, the history of African descendants around the globe. And I'll share a story with you, which kind of blew me away. Did you know that one of the greatest poets in Russian history, Alexander Pushkin, was the great grandson of an African slave who was captured from an African prince? His name was Abram in the early 1700s. Abram spoke Russian, Turkish, French, and was the greatest engineer in Russian history. He became He was adopted by Peter the great Russian Tsar, and later served as a general with Catherine the Great. Abram was considered a Black intellectual, though the color of his skin always posed a problem. His great-grandson, Alexander Pushkin, is considered the grandfather of Russian literature. Isn't that amazing? Don't take my word for it. Ask Google. You'll find Pushkin as the #1 literary uh, grandfather of literature of Russia. The other one is Leo Tolstoy, he's #2. As I was going through the history section of this site, it was like peeling the onion. And really, at some point, it really makes you want to cry. There's just so much history there and so much pain as well in our history. But I encourage everyone to start digging and start learning about who we are as a people. Under this history section here, you're seeing one of this is not Europe, this is Africa, this is Ethiopia, this is the palace. It's the only place that was not, only country that was not colonized. And so a lot of its rich history is still there. Education is important, it's critical. Marcus Garvey said, never forget that intelligence rule the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far as possible from ignorance and seek as far as possible to be intelligent. It is so important that we put education as one of the key pillars of the Black community's success. And on this website, you'll find a whole host of information that leads you to the best school, all the information you need in terms of homework help. A whole host of information is there. So I encourage everyone to check the site out for that. Wealth building is one of the great impediments within the Black community. Access to capital is something that is lacking that will enable creating generational wealth. This section of the site provides resources to start building wealth and safeguarding wealth. We're about 400 years behind in terms of building generational wealth. And this month I'm featuring on the site Orlando Lopez, as I mentioned, that has a host of information in terms of estate planning, creating wealth building, a lot of advice on that site. So do check that out. I was recently in a session that was, the key speaker was Van Jones, the CNN host. And he said, we need partners, not pity. The genius, the joy, and I may also add the success come from synergies, not silos. We need allies with each one of us as we come to these crossroads in order to move us forward. Lots more on the site, so please check it out. From a history standpoint, I'll show you some pictures that may look like Europe, but this is not Europe. We're fed so many stories that shows us Africa in a certain light. On this website, I'm trying to show a different side of Africa. These are all cities within Africa. Obviously, poverty exists, and poverty exists everywhere. But there's also a different side of the coin. And you'll see that they're great, thriving cities across Africa. Much is achieved by yourself, but much more is achieved as a collective. And for that, I would like to thank all the folks who have helped me build out this website, my family and friends who have helped in the design, my son Anthony, my 14-year-old Serena, Siobhan and Romaine, my daughter and her husband, my other daughter Alicia, and my friend Janice, my friend Delroy, and this wonderful young woman, Pamela, who I'm massacring her name, I'll just call her Pamela, who translated the entire site in French, free of charge. Like, I'm just blown away by her generosity and the generosity of Tai Wu, who enlisted his friend, Samil from Ozidi Concept, who created the logo for this site. So one of the lessons I take away from my interaction with Tai Wu and my other mentees is that mentorship is a two-way street, and you get much from it than you give into the mentorship situation. And this is case in point, because I've gotten so much from these individuals, not just in our conversation, but their generosity in contributing to this website. So I encourage everyone to take a look at the site to help me build it up and build it out for the elevation of our Black community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June. That was very insightful. And I particularly love how you place so much emphasis on the beauty and the strength and the much we can achieve as a collective, even though we can also achieve much as individuals. So thank you so much for your time. If everyone, if you have questions, please put them on the chat. We will get to questions right after all our speakers are done. And we have a little panel discussion going on. So please don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat. And moving on, we have another amazing speaker, Erin Leslie. Erin is a leadership coach who will enable any professional or team to achieve their career aspirations through personal development, planning, and coaching. She believes that every career could benefit from mentorship. She sees the opportunity in anyone who is stuck or does not know the right thing to do. Erin practices one-on-one coaching with clients and mentees across all industries. She's certified in EQI assessments. Erin specializes in emotional intelligence practices and tools to support a stronger emotional quotient in the workplace. Her emotional intelligence keynote provides insights from 20 plus years as a business career woman in tech, combined with a tailored coaching style. She has the intuitive ability to uncover personal or environmental barriers and help identify new goals for your business audience. Erin also shares insights on diversity, equality, and breaking down biases in the workplace to build a more inclusive environment for everyone. Helping professionals, teams, and newcomers with all aspects of business negotiation, personal branding, networking, and business culture is not only a vocation, it is her passion. From 2017 to 2021, her public speaking events include Intellect, City of Toronto, Women in Tech and Finance, PMI Chapter of Toronto, and many more. Erin will be sharing insights from her experience in applying EI in the workplace to foster team building, employee development, relationship building, and overall career enhancement. I am particularly excited to hear her talk, so please give her a warm welcome as she takes the stage or your screen.
Thank you so much, Uju. And thank you for that opening, June. That was a really, really amazing introduction to the beauty that is Africa. And your personal story particularly touched me. I would like to share some information with you, so allow me to do that for just a second. Just going to make this. All right. So I'm very honored to be here today. I'm very grateful to Teo for inviting me after we've had a few one-on-one sessions looking at his amazing ability to strive and succeed in his own business and career aspirations. It's through that relationship and the building off of an introduction that was made through another keynote that I have done with organizations that he is tied to, that I've had the fortunate ability and time to spend with him and learn more about his desire to bring Thami Wales Canada to all of you in the world. I am a leadership coach, and something that is intrinsically unique about that story is I started it after I felt like I was going to deal with the last bully situation of my life in my career. I basically said, I want to help other people break through difficult situations at work and provide them the steps that they can move quickly on to their next success. That was the emphasis in which I was spearheading my own company, EQ Footprints. I later took that to a different level and decided I aspire to create a non-for-profit that particularly helps newcomers entering into Canada. Through TRIAC, an organization that helps newcomers partner with mentors that can support them in their journey. TRIAC is the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. I was able to support many newcomers in landing work in Canada and helping them navigate the North American business style. My first approach in speaking with anyone is to understand who they are and what's their dreams and passions. In order for me to help them through to their next step, I need to know what it is that they desire. Sometimes that is a difficult question for people to answer because they haven't had the chance to stop and think of it for themselves. Much of the time that I spend helping mentoring in this area has brought me to understand how people are led down paths because they are vulnerable and end up being taken advantage of. As a newcomer in Canada, they don't get a break. It's through those relationships that I discovered the intrinsic difficulties of being accepted and the adversity that is faced not just after you land, but long after you've tried to establish your base here. The connections back home are equally difficult. People have expectations or anticipations while you manage the expectations and anticipations here. It's a difficult balance, which makes me even more inspired to help people connect quickly with a network that can help them and grow it so that they can provide success and opportunity for themselves and their family. I believe that when I help one person, I'm not just helping them, but I'm helping the people that believe in them too. And so this effort that I put forth, my dream is to create the non-for-profit EQ Footprints that actually opens a center one day where all of the people that I've helped can give back in creating a safe space for future vulnerable newcomers and people who have been here for some time but still find difficulty in creating that success for themselves and building a community that helps one another. That's my goal. So being here today is even more special to me because I get to continue that message to you all. And linking it back to the foundation of Thami Wales is how do you manage change? How do you support your ability to have talent streams, to build capability within your organization, and to be able to manage what's ahead of you through those channels? So I really would like to connect some of that to emotional intelligence, which is the baseline for EQ Footprints. How do we enable ourselves to do better and read people better? It's through emotional intelligence. A lot of people ask me, what is emotional intelligence? And it's pretty interesting when you think that you use emotional data every day, but you don't really take it into consideration how important that data is for you to make relationships, make decisions, and negotiate change all the time. I pretty much define it as a set of emotional information and matched with social skills that guide the way that we use information to perceive and express ourselves, how we manage and cope with change and challenges, and make effective and meaningful relationships based on those data points. How do we give that information out to the world and how do we receive the information that comes back to us. In a nutshell, I tell everyone, it's the internal suit that every person wears that cannot be seen or anticipated. You ultimately decide how your EQ is going to shine through. In many of my keynotes and with my one-on-one coaching, I sort of discuss the ways in which you can empower yourselves today in order to move yourselves forward in your career. And emotional intelligence in negotiation is really a key point in your toolkit. The moment we step out of the womb, or slide out, we are negotiating with our parents. We're negotiating with the people that are in our care, our doctors, whoever is in front of us. When we first get into this world, we want certain things. We are negotiating food, support, love, being embraced. So we learn very quickly how to tell what we need in order to be safe and happy. But society very quickly shuts us down throughout our growing years and tells us how to cultivate and how to navigate and how to negotiate. And if we'd kept on our pathways of being courageous and bold and just demanding what we want, it'd be amazing the difference. But our environments shape us to some extent. And so it's important that we remind ourselves that we are in power of our destiny. We have to negotiate everything. And how do you do that? There's a number of ways to package and ask. And part of the things that I teach in my coaching practices is how do you package that ask so that you can get out at least 50% of what you expect in that negotiation. The important message about that is throughout your entire life, you don't wait to be invited to negotiate. You are entitled and you're already sitting at the table. That is the envisionment that you must carry with yourself. It's all about empowering. And so emotional intelligence and leadership is about how you demonstrate who you are and play that back day after day, empowering and embodying the language you speak and the actions you make. So leadership and emotional intelligence is very key. How leaders treat everyone in the room, how they hold others accountable when they might have stepped over bounds. In some cases, when I'm building strong teams and I see areas for change and improvement, obviously I won't make those suggestions in front of everyone else, but I will make every effort to help teams along individually by pointing out how the way that they behave in a team dynamic has not just effect on the person they're addressing, but the other people around them simply observing. That very concept is an aha for most people. That what you say might be understood by the person in front of you, but that the other people around you might interpret it differently, and you haven't considered them. In emotional intelligence, it's important to focus on how you can generate strong teams. If you ask me what my superpower is, I will tell you it's empathy. I believe that empathy builds trust and lasting trust. Mm-hmm. As a coach and as a leader, I need to connect with people's story in order to understand how they want to work with me and how they want to solve problems for the organization we're serving. That empathy is key in establishing relationships and sharing my own personal stories to build that trust. And finally, emotional intelligence in your footprint of your career is recognizing how the memories that shaped you at the beginning of your career, at the middle of career, have made you come to a decision in this time in your career. And that could be from the pain and suffering of going through a termination, to the joys of having an accolade or award for your achievements, to the abuse that's suffered by harassment or judgments, not being able to succeed or being pushed aside. Certain leaders or certain occasions or certain industries have made you decide to move away and make other choices. Our fear of having those things re-happen in our future shapes how we make changes for our career going forward. The question we need to ask ourselves is, I reflect on my career. How did I get here? Which experiences shaped my belief? And that includes bias, a very, very important topic in any organization. How do your biases provide a space for certain behaviors? And how did those biases shape the decisions you made to get to where you are today, or not? It's a very important topic, and I really enjoy having open discussions on that one. Finally, I'd like to leave you with, how are you achieving? Some of the things that are so inspiring in coaching and one-on-one interactions is helping people lead with their passion, demonstrating that they can be authentic in their present work as they are. Finding that one skill set that you want to draw out and bring to the office so that you can demonstrate your capabilities and your leadership based around your key skill sets that you are so focused on. Find out the things that make you waste time and decide if you can shed them is a key way to gain back time to invest in you. And if something is taking you away from bringing your joy to work, then it's time to focus on turning that around too. If it doesn't bring you happiness, how can you let it go so that you can bring more happiness into your life and into your career? Being transparent is imperative in any work or life situation. And above all, embrace change. I would like to just share with you the reason why I am so focused on diversity and inclusion is because my first interactions at school was with a myriad of people from different cultural backgrounds. And I grew up wanting to learn more about those stories and those histories and understand what brought them here and what makes them unique and special, and shining a light on that. When I was making friends in elementary school, I told everyone, because back in Montreal, minority was such a focal, newsworthy conversation, I would tell everyone, I am the minority, and you are here so that I can learn from you and we can teach each other. I think that concept that I learned at a very young age has allowed me to grow into an amazing leader. Because every interaction I have with anyone I meet, my first thought is, what will I learn today? Not necessarily what I can give you, but what you will give me. That is the spirit in which I am honored. And I think that Black History Month is all year round. And helping in identifying ways that we can bring an awareness and inclusion to everything we do is part of my mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. You dropped a ton of nuggets. It's so inspiring just listening to you speak. I was taking notes literally, and you said a lot of things, and I actually have my questions as well, but we'll get to that. You know, your comment about making sure that we bring joy, our joy, to the workplace, and also understanding that we are entitled, not invited, just so that we own and know who we are even before walking into the workplace. So we're not, shortchanged or taken advantage of. So this was really enlightening, and we have questions, and I see all the questions coming in. We will get to them after this third speaker. His name is Tom Oluwole, and I'm excited to bring him to you. He has been involved in leadership for over 20 years, both as a leader and a trainer coach. He has been involved as a leader for over 20 years, both as a leader, a trainer, coach. My screen keeps, and a coach of leaders. Tom is passionate about human capital consulting and has been doing this for over 14 years, consulting for 7 years, and working with the Big Four, and 7 years working with executive management teams within organizations. With his diverse experience, Tom possesses a unique blend of the perspectives from being an external management consultant and an internal business advisor. Tom firmly believes that an organization's only
sustainable source of competitive advantage is its people. This is
why Tom focuses on systematically combining consulting and coaching techniques to unleash the full potential of people. He has a proven record of working with leaders in various industries, including public sector, government, healthcare, financial services, oil and gas, and telecoms. Tom worked with leaders and teams of these organizations to drive the successful implementation of business growth and transformation initiatives. Tom has worked in North America, Middle East, and Africa, where he has consulted for and coached individuals from over 50 different nationalities. He has delivered consulting and coaching programs in various projects, scenarios, including startups, technology implementation, digital modernization, corporate restructuring and mergers and acquisition. As a John Maxwell certified trainer, coach, and speaker, Tom can effectively customize John Maxwell's globally applied leadership principles to what works best for you and your organization. Please join me in welcoming Tom today as he speaks to us about really how to excel both as a business and a professional. Tom, welcome to the stage and the screen.
Thank you, Ju. Thank you so much. It's always sort of weird, when you hear somebody reading out your profile. It feels a bit uncomfortable as you're hearing everything. I think it was even double for me when I heard another voice behind that voice. It just became, even more. But thanks to Ju for that great introduction. Thank you, June, for talking about the heritage that we have. I think coming from Nigeria, it's easy to take for granted, what we have and the fact that we sort of have that rootedness. And just reminding us of the value and the beauty of our continent is a great thing. Erin, I've heard you speak before, but today it was also a different direction. And, just what you mentioned about entitled to negotiate really resonated with me. And I think even going forward with my clients, I will be coming from that point of view that I'm entitled to negotiate. So hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll be sharing my screen now, just to take us through some thoughts around equipping the Black community for leadership in career and business. There's a lot to talk about in this space. When Taiwo reached out to me and said I should, put something together, I was like, how many things can I possibly share in 15 minutes? So I just tried to compress, some thoughts into some few slides. Hopefully you'd find that useful. I was going to say that we could have done a poll to just check with everyone that when Taiwo first told you that he was starting this consulting firm, what did you think? What were your thoughts? Were you excited? Were you surprised? Were you happy? Were you scared for him? Or were you inspired? It would be great to just hear what people think, and you can just type that in the chat. But I'll just tell you what I felt. Honestly, I was inspired when Taiwo told me about this. And I'll share a bit more about that later on. But, inspired because I met Taiwo maybe roughly 2 years ago now, so not very long. We met at a Christmas party when we still gathered together in person, and life was very different. And the first thing that drew me to Taiwo was just, I guess, the way him and his wife related together. They had this very friendly, lively banter, and they were actually really, cracking jokes in a way that, another couple, you'll be wondering what's going on, but they were just having fun and they were being themselves. So that his character sort of drew me to him. And then after that party, we got talking and I got to know a bit more about his competence and past experience. And then from there, I realized that he's also working on his connections and building his network. And it's no surprise to me when he came forward and said, you know what, I'm pushing on my career, but I also want to begin to push on my business desires as well by starting Thami Wales here in Canada. And I was honestly inspired and challenged on a new level altogether. So I'm going to be picking from that little story of Taiwo, as well as my own experience, which I would share as I go through the slides, and maybe a bit of experience of some of my clients as well. I've codenamed them just for the confidentiality required, but I just thought bringing live examples of people that have walked through what we're all working through right now would really help us to get some perspectives. So success in career, success in business. What does success really mean? One of the definitions I grabbed from John Maxwell way back that has sort of stayed with me over time is success is knowing your purpose, growing to maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. And that's a really loaded definition, and I'll just try and break that down very quickly. He says success is knowing your purpose, the very first step, which is really understanding what you're here to achieve. And I connect that to what Erin was saying around knowing people first of all, before you can actually help them to know where they should be going next. And then he says next, after knowing your purpose, is growing to maximum potential. And that's really what resonates with me the most, because I realize many people actually know where they're going, at least maybe a great number of people, but growing to maximum potential is another conversation all by itself. And how do you know what your maximum potential is? You never really know, except you just keep on growing. You keep on growing, you keep on growing. And then finally, sowing seeds that benefit others. So success is not complete until you're pulling somebody else along with you. And I think that resonates particularly for us when we talk about the Black community, because with everything you've been hearing, both from June and from Erin, there's this element of the networking, the coming together, the one chain pulling another person to really, lift each other up and get to that next level becomes really critical. So as you look at the slide, what I tried to do was then have a funnel that brings in 3 ingredients that I feel are pretty critical in driving towards success in career or business. And I call it the 3 C's. And what's the first C? It's pretty much what I, described about Taiwo earlier. It's character. And character is just basically who you are as a person. And I find that, while we may have many theories, many ideas around growing a business or growing a career, at the end of the day, you're interacting with other people. And people get drawn to people that they find their characters to be in the right frame that they expect it to be. And for us, as we blend into the community, as we flow in here, it is important that we understand what are the expected forms of character. And maybe to connect that back to Erin's point, it's not for us to conform, it's not for us to change who we are, but it's just to be enlightened, to then know how we bring ourselves forward in our authentic self forward into that space. Whether we like it or not, there is a frame of reference within which people operate. And when you understand that as a first standpoint, it then begins to equip you on how you position yourself within that frame of reference to move forward in the direction you want to go. Of course, next to character from success perspective is competence. There are a lot of people that are very good in character, but they're not very competent in what they do. And John Maxwell says that if you really like something, but you're not good at it, then make it your hobby, not your career or your business. Your hobby can be anything you just kind of like to do, when you're having fun. But if it's something you want to push forward in, competence is non-negotiable. There is a competitive world out there. Everybody's pushing forward their dreams and their desires. And while there's a vast market, it's also great to recognize that your competence will distinguish and differentiate you from the majority. Now, these 2 things, I find that for many of us from the Black community, we're not really struggling with them. Many of us come from homes where character is, born into us, either from a religious background or from just a morally great and upright standpoint. We're mostly hardworking and we're committed to learning and training. I was at an event yesterday and I was introducing one of the panelists, and I couldn't read all these guys' certifications. I just ran out of time reading all the certifications that he had, because he had just gone from one to another to another to another. So competence is not really where we struggle. The 3rd C, I think, is where many of us are probably still trying to learn and understand what happens. That is connections. Building those very viable and strong connections that can promote us from wherever we are to the next place that we need to be. And I really want to call that out for everyone, because part of what this kind of a platform provides to us is the ability to be able to build viable and strong connections. And when I say connections, I don't just mean people that know you or you're connected with them on LinkedIn, but people that have gotten the taste of your character, meaning who you are, and your competence, meaning what you can do. When you begin to bring those 2 things forward, it actually begins to then say, okay, yeah, I know this guy, I know who he is, and I know what he can do. There's an opportunity out here. Why don't I connect him with it? And that's how the success begins to happen, because then people know you, they understand what you can do, and they begin to link you up with those opportunities as they flow by. So I've briefly talked about these 3 things. And like I said, they're just my own view of compressed thoughts on other things that are like ingredients that kind of get you going. Right now, I just want to hear from maybe everybody on the call as well. As you look at those 3 items, in your view, which of the 3 would you say is most important in success in career or business? And I'll give us maybe 2 or 3 minutes to just type that in the chat. It'll be great to just get some thoughts around that. No right or wrong answers here. just curious to hear everybody's thoughts around the subject. I'll pop in the chat and just see what's happening there.
Yeah, I could look at them as well. Bumi says connections is the most important to her.
Okay.
Olajide says character. We have a lot of votes for character.
Yeah, I see that.
And honestly, if I was going to pick one as well, it would be character, just because that's your why, that's your core.
Exactly. And I think if I were to choose one as well, it would be character, because everything sort of stems from there. If people get close to you and your character doesn't work, it wouldn't stick, right? And I think competence is not a challenge. You know, like I said, you can get your certifications, you can push forward, but that character molding, I think knowing yourself, being aware of who you are and how you position yourself within different environments, again, linking to what Erin said about emotional intelligence, I think those are really the key pieces in here. So if we're saying character, then I think this next slide is in order. And I was hoping there'll be more character than others. So I'm happy things are going in that flow. What exactly then influences character? In my perception, it's your values. And that's why I call that the unseen ingredient, because values really aren't my values are not written on my face. And as by looking at some of the faces on the screen, I can't tell what your values are. But the values are those internal things that sort of like drive, inform, and guide our behavior, our perception, and our interpretation of things. And I heard a person say once that when you have values, you will command value. Essentially meaning that when you have the values that sort of drive you in the right way, the value that you desire in form of money will come your way. You know, I said this yesterday at the event I was in, and I'll repeat it here. I was coaching a lady and she said, oh, I just want to go to the place where there's money. And I'm sure many of us can guess where that lady is from. She said, I want to go to where there's money. And I said, okay, but I'll tell you this, that anywhere you are, if you generate value there, money will find you. I have an uncle, senior cousin, so I call him uncle, who read Yoruba. So Yoruba is my native language where I'm from in Nigeria. He read this in the university for 4 years. And I often tell his story that I wonder how his friends will have been teasing him to say, is it the same language that we speak that you've gone to read in school for 4 years? But he finished, and he finished very well. He did well, he added value. It so happened that the year he was graduating was the same year that a university from the United States decided to study 3 languages in Africa, Hausa, Yoruba, and Swahili. So they came to UI, they asked for the top student, who happened to be him, and that was how he was drafted to the United States so they could study the language and he would do his postgraduate. As I speak today, he's a professor in University of Georgia and he's having fun there because he studied Yoruba. Let me say it the proper way. You know, the interesting thing about that is wherever you are, when you add value, you will generally generate that value that you desire. So what are your values? Now, I can't answer for you, so I thought to share what mine are, just as a way to sort of like, you know, take us forward in that conversation. So I have an acronym. You know, anyone who knows me knows I like acronyms. I just play a lot with words. And the acronym for my values are IDEAL. And I'll take us through what that means very quickly. And as I talk about each of the values, I'll also talk about a story of a client just to really buttress the point. The first is integrity. Integrity is say what you mean and mean what you say. And this is not just about lying or saying the truth. It's more about just what Erin and June had talked about earlier, bringing your true self, letting people benefit from who you really are and letting that come forward. So I had a client who, you know, for whatever reason was terminated from one of the big 4 firms. He worked there for a while and he was terminated. And this, my client made a story in his mind that it was because of his poor performance that he was terminated. So anytime he went for subsequent interviews, what he would tell them when they ask him, oh, what happened here? He would say, oh, I was ill for a long time or something, the work was too stressful. You know, he always created a story that wasn't quite the truth. So what I then suggested to him was, if you're not certain, I said, was it communicated to you that it was about performance? And he said, well, not really. I said, if that's not the case, then you just need to be able to tell them up front what it is that happened and just say it as it is. And he did that. And, you know, the very next interview he went for, he actually got that job. The second one is diligence. Now, with diligence is being thorough and persistent in whatever you do and to get that desired solution. Very quickly, I'll share the story of a client I also worked with. She desired to work as a development banker here in Canada. But when she came in, it wasn't quite easy to get into that space. She started off as a teller in the bank, continued and worked her way up. And today she's actually in that role just by pushing on with diligence. The next value I'll talk about is excellence. So excellence is committing to quality and continuous improvement. And in this, I'll be talking about the same person I mentioned yesterday, who was just basically pushing through on many certifications just to keep on improving himself. Now, these are values that people have. And these values, like I said, begin to drive value. The next one I think is really very pertinent for us and our community is audacity. Being bold to make those steps and moves, even no one else before you has. So I started off with Deloitte here in Canada. And after about a year and a bit, I sort of realized that this wasn't really what I wanted to do. And then I decided to move on to what I'm doing right now, which is running my own consulting firm. I thought that was brave in itself, but you can imagine how more inspired I felt when Taiwo came to me and told me about his own story as well. So it's really great to see people making such audacious moves and moving forward. The last I'll mention very quickly is leadership, being able to ethically influence up, influence down, and influence across. And this story I'll mention is very quickly of a client of mine who currently is now working as a director in one of the organizations. And she initially thought that, she wouldn't be able to prosper, I would say, in that role. But working with her, she realized that she actually has the skills to influence her boss and influence peers, and she's doing marvelously well there right now. So these are the values I have, and these are what has driven me till now. Very quickly, just showing now with these values, how that sort of changes the scope and the shape of this. So values now become that ingredient that's sprinkled across, really influence things as you see them now on the screen. And I want to encourage us to pause a bit and ask ourselves, what are my values? What are the things that drive me and really drive me from within? This is about our company. There isn't much time to talk about that right now, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity that Taiwo has given me to be here. And it's really a pleasure sharing a few thoughts with everybody. All right, then, Uju, back to you.
Thank you so much. This was so impactful and insightful. I wonder how many of you were looking through the values and being like, oh, I think I have to add that one to my value. I saw some, I'm like, I see audacity. I'm going to add that to my list of values as well, especially because it kind of ties to what Erin said earlier, where she said, you're entitled, not invited. So that's like very hand in hand with audacity. And we have to be bold. We have to really know what we want and not be scared to go out there and take it, right? So thank you so much, all three of you. It's been a very packed evening. And so I'm going to just encourage you all, especially all of us on the call, if you have questions, to just drop them in. And if you want to direct them, your questions, to any one of our speakers in particular, please just put that there as well, and they would answer the questions. I have one, which is for Erin, actually. And this question goes, how do you correct or enlighten other races when they say something inappropriate about the Black race, possibly out of ignorance, because we all don't know everything? How do you do that without sounding defensive or aggressive?
Thank you. That's a really great question. I know that in this audience right now, we're underlining race. I just want to say that, that question applies to any situation. It's a great question. I am someone who leads by my values. If I take from Tom's presentation, which was really well put together on underlining that key importance. So as a leader, you can expect that I will call out things that I don't agree with. And by doing that, first of all, let me say a leader is anyone at any level. Let's stop thinking that leaders only have executive roles. You're a leader at every level of your work. And so you have a responsibility to lead as you work. And I think it's important that when you work with anyone at your level, you establish what are your boundaries and what are your expectations. That's something that we have to do, not just from a project practice or from an assignment practice, but also from a relationship practice. So when I get in a group, I establish that I'm someone who is interested in many different things, many different people, many different cultures. And I'm really someone who's interested in discussing and unpacking why bias exists and how do we make our workplace more equitable, diverse, and inclusive. I'll state that up front to anybody that I work with. And I will read the body language on the response to that. And when I see something that is not appropriate, and I know and I can read the other person's boundaries and feelings without speaking, I will pull that other person aside and I'll express to them, if you were on the receiving end of that comment, how would you feel? And see what the thermometer is back on the response. And I will articulate to them an anecdote that I've either heard from someone else or from my own past to give them insights into what they did to the impression of the room, how they deflated certain people's excitement of being present in that moment and made them turn off everything else that was going on because of what they just said or did. And if I'm in an audience where, like this, there's 50, 100 people and something was said, but the story keeps going, I'll remember what was said and I'll go back to my leaders and I'll say, in that meeting, I heard these two things that didn't resonate well with me. And I'm certain that they did not resonate with the Black people in the room. And I would like you to reach out to those people that said that and underline why that would be uncomfortable and inappropriate. And I've done that. And I have seen people stop and reflect and consider what they took for granted or they claimed was bias, which is never unconscious. It's just sleeping in how you can create change, and remind those people of how they can address their audiences or their teams differently.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that deep, insightful answer. We have a couple more questions. So between now and for the next 20 minutes, we're just going to deal with all the questions that are coming in. I do have one for you, June, and just speaking off the back of race, how have you dealt with microaggression in the past, especially as a Black woman? I know in corporate Canada, sometimes you walk into a room and you're the only one who looks like you. So those looks between people when someone enters the room or raises an eyebrow or throws a comment at someone else in your presence, or someone that looks like you, how have you managed those subtle aggressions? I think you're muted. Yeah. I still, let me see if I can unmute you.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Microaggression. I think many of us as Black individuals get that in many situations. I've had microaggression, maybe macroaggression as well, where people are pretty much in your face in terms of not wanting to work with you. And I'll probably deal with the macroaggression first, where someone doesn't want to work with you because of the color of your skin. One of my early career move, I had that situation occurred. And you get to a point where it becomes a bit debilitating, but you get your grit and you say, you know what, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to let this person push me out. But what I've learned over the years is you have to actually take stock of the impact it's having on you. We say being Black has an emotional tax. It also has a physical tax. For me, in my early career, the physical tax was the stress that led to things like my thyroid being overactive. And as I look back, I realized that I should have maybe get to a point where I say enough and walk away. So for the young people out there, sometimes staying in and fighting is actually not the best way. Sometimes you just have to step away. Having said that, there were many positives that came out of that very negative situation. And that was more on the macroaggressive side. I've been in a situation in more microaggression where I enter a room, say I'm representing my senior director, and someone in the room, another senior director would say, here come the wannabes. And what it does, it robs you of your confidence as you step into that meeting, and you continue to think about that as you make your presentation, as you sit in the room feeling more of an imposter rather than an active participant. So what I would hope, and how I've dealt with it, beyond that initial situation that made me feel unworthy of being there, I've taken steps now to call it out. So I had similar situation where I really called a person out to say that's not acceptable. And I think as Black individuals, we have to step in our power and really stand up and say, this is not acceptable. I'm not going to accept it. And you need to check yourself. And we also need our colleagues around us, our managers, to call it out, as Erin mentioned, to make sure that there's certain values that are espoused within organizations, and that those values people should be held accountable to be in line with those values.
That's amazing. I like how you also highlighted the fact that a lot of the responsibility also lie in, leadership of some of our companies, and just really making sure that they're, and holding them accountable really for being inclusive and really just accepting and being open to other diversities. And that leads me to my next question, which I'm going to target at Tom. In terms of inclusive leadership now, what changes need to happen? I know Erin mentioned, and June also mentioned earlier in the conversation, around the fact that George Floyd's death really just opened the floodgates for a lot of changes that have happened, but there's still a lot of changes that still need to happen. So what changes need to happen in leadership development to really equip leaders with the capabilities to accelerate the pace of change towards inclusion? Because there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, I think it's very loaded. I'll try and, answer in a few different ways. I think generally the first will be, awareness. I think across board, like, June rightly said, what George Floyd's death did and everything since then, awareness has really grown. And I like what Erin said. I don't think anybody can talk about unconscious bias anymore now, really. It's really very clear. People know. You'd have to be in Siberia or somewhere where there's no internet to not know what has happened right now. And apologies to anybody from Siberia. I was just trying to be, make a statement. So awareness at the very highest level. The next is a desire. And that's probably the hardest, because the desire is more of an internal thing that you really can't force a person to. But when you know that there's something needs to change, the desire to make that change, I think, is the next level. And then the last level, just like we're talking about equipping, I would say the organization needs to then provide learning opportunities for the leaders that really want to change across many levels. And I think there are 4 main ways that people learn. One is by reading. So just really providing people with information about what's really going on, statistics around how the numbers are not representing what is real. So reading, listening. So leaders now need to be vocal and talking about what's happening, what they're doing, and letting other people learn and see that as well. Observing, I think, is another way people learn, by showcasing those people that are actually making progress. So spotlighting and highlighting, those diverse and inclusive people that you're now bringing in and the changes they're bringing into the organization. But I think the last way of learning, which is doing, I think is still the most important, because then we need to provide a safe space. Because some people, in my interaction with leaders that are, trying to be more diverse and inclusive, it's also a very anxious and maybe nervy experience for them, because they don't know what to say, what not to say, how to approach some things. So really providing a safe environment for them to begin to learn that. Buddying system could be one way, where it's just very informal. It's not like this is not your direct report. It's just like a very simple buddy system where people learn and grow in it. Others could be like workshops or scenario playings that happen. The list is endless, but I think if they focus on those 4 things of reading, listening, observing, and doing, I think that's how the learning would happen and the leadership ability would increase. And for those who do not have the desire, then I think that's a call for that organization to put their money where their mouth is, and put in some strong policies around people that do not still want to change after all they've seen. But yeah, that's a different conversation all by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's a whole huge conversation that needs more than an hour to unpack. But you said some really you made some really strong points there about really observing and then really taking action, because it's not just enough. Like what we've been seeing now is, a lot of things happening. People are observing, people are learning, people are correcting some things, some unconscious biases that they had.
Yeah.
But then it's also required that they do the work, right? So thank you so much for that answer. And really, I know this is Black History Month and we are celebrating our joy and our excellence. And like June and Erin rightly said, it's not just a 1 month celebration, right? It goes and transcends beyond February. But then it also shows up in our workplace, especially. And following the theme of this event, this is actually, just to improve on our capacities. My next question is more towards how do we really excel in the workplace? And this is directed at Erin. How can you, in terms of employing emotional intelligence now, how do you speak up respectfully to challenge a stifling work environment? Because not everyone will be lucky enough to be matched, in a company that really gives us room to thrive and be our best self. But sometimes there are cases where we just feel so choked up. But how would you encourage people? How would you encourage us to speak up using EI to really challenge those environments?
Great question. And, in addition to, the focus of that question, I think there's a lot of other stressors that we could add on to that we deal with. And June said it really well earlier. You have to determine if the fight is worth it. You have to assess your opponent, if you would, and see, am I willing to put it all on the line right now? Is it going to change? Can I create change? Do I have enough allies in the room to support me? Have I done enough, building in relationships and understanding of what's around me to make this challenge? Or do I need to pivot? And the pivot is really about understanding there's an opportunity to direct myself towards happiness or stay in this difficult, stifling environment. If the environment isn't just at my level, but it's at the level above, well, one might say mud goes downhill. And so if the behaviors and the characters that you're seeing at the top are demonstrating the same erratic, bully, careless, and inappropriate behavior at those levels, then they've created the wall in front of you. And if you were to break that wall down, that would be amazing, but then you'd be sure there'd be another one above it. I look for organizations that know how to speak about intelligence from an emotional level. I look for diverse companies. Don't just say you're diverse. Show me what you're doing to help people be inclusive and feel inclusive. And those are the types of companies and organizations I want to work for. And then I look to see, are the leaders walking the walk and as well as talking the talk? And those are the organizations that I want to pivot to, because I know my career will matter first, and I will not have to deal with as much of that microaggression or macroaggression in that case. So it's really, it's a balance of understanding, is it all around me or is it just in front of me? And how can I bring along my allies to support me in this fight so that you are protected and you're well taken care of?
That's very, very timely, especially as what you said about really picking your battles and really just knowing, is this something that I want to fight now? It's really the expression of emotional intelligence. And also your comment about allyship, just kind of connected to what Tom mentioned earlier about the third C, which is connection. So really now is the time to build those connections and networks, because you never know when it will really come in handy in fighting some of these battles. So just really climbing up the corporate ladder. And speaking of corporate ladder, I am wondering what opportunities, and this question really is for June, what opportunities are open to Black immigrants who desire to, maybe venture into political arena in this at this time, if there are any opportunities like that? So if you have the numbers, do you know what percentage rate of success there are and what the challenges would be? What would you advise in that space?
While I don't have insight necessarily into the political arena and the numbers, I think we are at this kind of seminal, pivotal point in our history with the awareness. And as Tom said, you have to be under a rock or Siberia not to realize, be aware now of equality and biases and all that stuff. So I think organizations as well as government are taking steps to be more inclusive. So I think the time for for Black people to step forward and to step into their power and step into these positions, the time is now. I think there's an urgency out there, and there is an allyship that I've never seen before that's there to support. And I think it's authentic allyship, where in the government, in the organization, I didn't come here to represent RBC, but I do work for RBC, and the allyship within that organization is tremendous. I've spoken personally with the mayor of Toronto, and before George Floyd was a thing or this big monolith of moving the needle forward, Mayor Tory had his anti-Black racism agenda, and had already started it. So I know that he has brought a lot of people in the political arena to be able to move the agenda forward. He has asked for people like ourselves, because many times the Black community may not step into that space, but there is a need and there's an ask that you be their allies, but they also need our voice. Because one of the things from one of the meetings I attended that was hosted by John Tory is that, I can go into the school and I can say things, but if you come with me, it's much more impactful. And I think that's true for running for any position in politics. So the allyship is there. The time is now. If people want to get into politics, don't wait, just do it. The change is what you need. You're the change you want to see, so step into the space and make it happen.
Exactly. Now is the time. Tomorrow is, like they say, is never really promised. And I can personally attest to Mayor Tory's involvement and campaign for diversity and inclusivity. He's done great work over the years. And yes, totally. I know we're almost at time, so I'm just going to ask this last question, and then we'll do a final round of questions for all three of you. But my last question is for you, Tom. Don't think that you escaped me. So in terms of really taking advantage of opportunities that are available now at a time like this, how do we move from being a quota, just a number and statistics, to really being recognized for our skills and talent brought to the organization? This, I don't want to call it a stereotype where they say we have to work twice as hard to get the same.
And confidence, and to link back to what Erin said, which I think is etched in my memory for life, is that you are not invited, you are entitled, because I find that many people just think that, because I'm the visible minority, I should be quiet. And I just have a phrase I just formed right in this session. I said, you can be the visible minority, but be the vocal majority. Mm-hmm. You need to be very, 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 very upfront and bring your full self in. When I join meetings, they know me. 3 minutes, 5 minutes in, I'm asking questions, I'm making comments. My video is on. My picture is there, but I want them to actually be sure that it's not a black and white photo. It's really me. This is me. I'm black, and it's great to be black. And I speak up and I talk. And I don't talk rubbish, right? Because the excellence, the diligence is already there. But if you know stuff and you can do stuff and you don't say it, no one's gonna know. And because there's so much support and opportunity right now, from what I'm seeing with clients that I coach, there's actually an accelerated path for the Black people that are very vocal and very good at what they do. So I would just say, speak up, speak sense, but speak up. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't think we're going to forget your line about even though we're the visible minority, be the vocal majority. Don't be shy. Speak up if you have something valuable to add. Please do. And one last comment from all three of you. First of all, I want to just ask that for those on the call, we're just going to extend by like 10 minutes. So I just hope that's okay. And I promise we'll be done in 10 minutes. And so for Erin, June, and Tom, if you have final words to give our participants today, what would that be? I'll start with you, June.
Well, I just want to say again that I'm honored and humbled to be here. Thank you, Taiwo, for inviting me to this panel. I've learned a lot from everyone who has spoken. Connection is so important, and Tom talks about that. So for the masses out there, make your connections. Taiwo reached out to me just out of the blue, and the other individual I mentioned, Pamela, she reached out to me. Make those connections, take that bold move to connect. I think one of the positives of being in this virtual space is that we're only a click away. So you can actually connect with anyone around the globe, and have done that. So let's make this the small world that it is. It's really a small world, and you don't really need to be fearful. The only thing you need to fear is fear itself. So step into the space, get connected, have those discussions, and let's move the needle forward in terms of equity and inclusion and being empowered in who you are, empowered in your skin, empowered in your voice to speak, because I think we all have our own unique talent. We have something to offer, and I think there's just so much untapped talent out there that if we could all bring our genius to the table, imagine the world that we'll create.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So you heard her. Bring your genius to the table and make those connections, please, because the world really needs it. Erin, final words?
Yeah, I really enjoyed what June said about connecting and networking. I think it's imperative for anyone's success. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by lecture, and some people learn by doing. So interacting with other humans is the doing. Building relationships is hard work. It means, kind of self-reflecting, but also having courage. And the more you stretch those emotional muscles, the stronger they will grow. One of the main questions that I get from anyone, whether they are a newcomer or they've been here their entire lives, there is cultural and personal perceptions that you can't talk to executives. They're unattainable. They don't have the time. They're too busy. When you make assumptions, you're not dealing with the evidence. That will not fare well in your career. Make a contact. Ask for a 15 to 30-minute coffee chat with a person that you admire, that you've seen the bright light when they speak, that you think that there is some strong sense of mentorship in that person. Reach out and make that connection. And don't just come to the table with a hope. Bring what is your key unique skill. Articulate the gifts that you can bring them to help their agendas in their endeavors at work, and ask them for the key advice that you're looking for now. Start the conversation that way and watch what they will give you. Everyone assumes that I'm too busy, and they hope when they reach out that I'll make time. Well, few people on this call have made that connection, and they saw the fruits of that relationship. So go out there, make those connections, bring your skills with you that you can unpack in 5 minutes to an executive. And I'm pretty sure you're going to gain a mentor, and potentially a sponsor down the road that will help you lead your path.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was very impactful. There seemed to be a very strong undertone on connections and networking. So that just shows you how important that is. And I like what you said about assumptions. I used to say this with my friends back in the day, and we still do. And they say assumption is the least form of knowledge. And I like how you put it, assuming is just denying the presence of evidence. So do not assume, make those connections, and keep it moving. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Tom, final words for us.
Yeah, I'll just maybe reiterate what has been said. I think there are a lot of great stuff that has come through already, from June to Erin, around things that we can do. What I'll just say is take action. You've heard some great stuff today, maybe some things you've heard before being reinforced, new things that have come to you. I'm hoping you took down some notes. My humble request is take action. Somebody came and said, why you call 3D action? I said, because there are many people that talk, there are many people that know what to do, but no one is really doing something. June said it, be the change you want to see. Erin just talked about it. Now go out there, you might be surprised. That just take action. You learn as you do, you learn as you go. It will never be perfect. Just take action. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Amazing. Take action. Do it. Like Nike would say, just do it.
Yes.
Do it. Take action and just, talk is cheap, like they say. Just do it. So thank you so much, Tom, Erin, and June. This has been so delightful. Thank you for giving of yourself, of your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. If we had to pay you, we couldn't pay enough. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you as well, Taiwo, for really just giving us the opportunity to, come here and learn and listen to these amazing speakers. Thank you everyone for staying an extra 6 minutes now. I'm just going to ask for 4 more minutes while Taiwo comes in and gives us a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Wow. Well, good thing I'm not coming to speak after these 3 amazing speakers. I'm just coming to just give a vote of thanks and, send us home. I just want to say thank you to everyone. Erin, June, thank you so much. Those are my two mentors, and Tom is my coach. So I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your support in all aspects. You guys have been phenomenal, and I want to say a big thank you. Of course, my co-founder is on the call. I don't want to sleep in the garage tonight, so thank you, Funto.
That's very wise.
Yeah. Well, Erin just talked about emotional intelligence. So I'm just practicing. I'm taking action, like Tom rightly said. Thank you. Thank you, Uju. You've been really awesome. I remember when I reached out to you, we didn't even have so much discussion, and you just agreed to do this. That's really, really kind of you. And that just goes to drive home the point that we've all made all day about connections, and connections. People will vouch for you. People will break their backs for you. When they understand your character, they know that you're someone they can derive value from, and there can be an exchange of value. And I mean, you've been really phenomenal. Thank you, Etikatify, the events manager. A very, very huge thank you to you. You've been really supportful. And thank you to every one of you on the call. You could have decided to do other things with your Friday evening. Thank you, Daniel, a friend from Otherwise on the call. It's his birthday, but he chose to, spend time with us this evening. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Etiketify. Thank you, 3Idia, for the amazing things that you guys are doing. I would just quickly show us, some of the services at Thami Wales, and it will be good night. So I'll just quickly run through this. We help organizations set up their HR departments. We focus on BIPOC recruitment, performance management, talent management, and all of those fancy things. I know a lot of you guys don't like your HR guys. I promise you, I am different. All right. And then, of course, after that, Thami Wales is involved in career coaching and counseling. A lot of people on this call will tell me, why are you doing this for free? Why are you talking to us for free? We want to pay you. And there are people like that on this call. And I'm like, okay, just, give of yourself, that's how you make those connections. Values are being created and exchanged every now and then. Leadership for business success, please do feel free to call on us. Every organization is as great as their leaders. You can never grow beyond your leadership capabilities. So we help to, help you look inward and, build those leadership behaviors that help you excel. And of course, change management is my baby. June is one of my mentors. Like I said, she's the director of organizational change management. I tap a lot from her. Erin is huge on change, even though she's an EQ and EI professional, but everything has to do with managing change, managing transitions, especially for newcomers. And Tom is big on change management as well. And of course, business advisory services. These are some of the things that we do and many more at Thami Wales. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone once again for, not dropping off the call and staying till this very moment. It means a lot to us. The speakers have graciously agreed that we can share their slides with you. So it's going to be shared in a PDF format. Let's just put in the chat room, one word to describe the evening, the speakers, the knowledge, the connections. One word from all of you. I'm watching. Just one word. I see impactful, awesome, empowering, beautiful, amazing, love. Someone said phenomenal, oleku. Excellence, lovely. And these words describe each and every one of us on this call. This is not about me. This is not about the speakers. This is not about the beautiful host, Uju. This is describing each and every one of us. Thank you again so very much for your time. It means a lot to us, and we look forward to doing business with you. Let the connection continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty.
Congratulations, Taiwo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Bye, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.